Your conversion to EFI just got a whole lot easier thanks to Sniper 2. Designed as a complete ecosystem, Sniper 2 has options that allow you to choose a path that best suits your needs. Sniper 2 is a brand new design from the ground up. We've kept some of the tried and true features like the self-tuning capability and the easy-to-use calibration wizard while improving on virtually everything else. Sniper 2's electronics feature an all-new next-generation ECU that provides several improvements, including improved RFI resistance, which is a common problem when updating an older vehicle with modern technology. While doing so, we were able to improve the ECU overall, which now includes an onboard non-contact throttle position sensor. Sniper 2 harnesses also got a revamp and are now plug-and-play for easy connection with HyperSpark distributors for complete engine control. You'll also notice that the fuel bypass hose is gone and is now cast internally to reduce the risk of fuel leaks. The injector connectors have been redesigned to lock on the injectors, ensuring a good connection. Overall drivability and pedal feel were improved by re-engineering the position of the throttle blades and revamping the throttle bell crank linkage. The new linkage incorporates transmission kickdown provisions for compatibility with most automatic transmissions. When it comes to designing your Sniper 2 ecosystem, the Holley.com configurator allows you to choose individual components and build a kit that best suits your needs. The first thing you'll have to do is select either a tumble polished or black powder coated finished throttle body. Next, you'll select your tuning interface. Option 1 is the full color 3.5-inch handheld, similar to the one used in the first gen Snipers. It provides laptop-free setup, as well as the ability to make changes, data log, and perform advanced tuning. Option 2 is our larger full color 5-inch display. It has all the same great features as the 3.5, but it also includes a GPS speedometer, 3 customizable display screens, and a convenient windshield mount. Looking for the ultimate in flexibility? Option 3 is Sniper's all-new Bluetooth module. It puts you in full control. This module allows you to use your iOS or Android-based smartphone to initially set up the Sniper 2, make tuning changes, use it as a gauge display, take data logs, or even use it to store your tunes. The Sniper 2 app also puts you in direct connection with Holley Tech Service. From there, you'll choose between a non-PDM or PDM equipped system. Our standard harness comes with non-PDM equipped systems and has an integrated fuel pump relay and heavy gauge power wire to power your fuel pump. The PDM or power distribution module is a multi-channel solid state relay that's designed to take the guesswork out of vehicle wiring. It's especially handy for wiring your Sniper 2 ecosystem, including the HyperSpark 2 ignition system. Simply connect the vehicle's positive battery power, ground, and a switch 12-volt lead, and the PDM does the rest. Easily add components to your Sniper 2 ecosystem by sandwiching the stripped ends from your Sniper system, HyperSpark ignition components, cooling fan, and fuel pump into the appropriate terminals that are labeled on the PDM. When it comes to fuel systems, Holley has a solution. Our Master Fuel System Kit is a return-style system designed for use with Sniper 2, and it includes a redesigned inline fuel pump, external regulator, fuel line, fuel filters, and necessary fittings. We also offer return and returnless style universal drop-in modules. They feature an integrated fuel pump sock and can be used in fuel tanks with depths between 7 and 12 inches deep. And check out our muscle car EFI fuel pump modules. They're the easiest way to convert your factory carburetor style pickup and sending unit to an electric in-tank pump that's rated for EFI use. Need a brand new EFI fuel tank to go with that new fuel pump? Holley offers over 200 direct fit fuel tanks to fit most popular vehicle applications. HyperSpark 2 ignition systems were designed to be used with Sniper 2. This includes HyperSpark distributors, ignition boxes, and coils. For the easiest install, utilize our HyperSpark ignition kits. They include all the components needed to add a high-performance ignition and timing control to your Sniper 2. Kits include a compact HyperSpark 2 ignition box, HyperSpark coil, and a distributor specific to your engine. And now you have the ability to control electronic 4-speed automatic transmissions with Sniper 2. Whether you have a 4L60, 4L80, AOD, or 4R70W transmission, our Sniper 2 transmission control module gives you the ability to calibrate gear ratios, adjust for tire sizes, modify shift firmness, and more, all without the need for a PC. Holley offers a wide range of additional supporting components to help complete your journey to EFI, including optional displays, air cleaners, plug wires, and much more. Let's take a look at what to expect when your Sniper 2 EFI kit arrives. The first item out of the box is the Quick Start Manual. Take the time to read the instruction guide completely and get familiar with all the steps required. Holley has produced a comprehensive install video to help you with your install. For complete technical resources regarding Sniper 2, visit the website listed or scan the QR code with your smartphone. Here's a list of the tools required for the installation. Next, let's remove the Sniper 2 throttle body from the box. The throttle body is the main component. It houses the relocated ECU and the improved fuel injector connectors. It's also the source for all the cables and connectors that we'll need to connect to later. You'll find fuel inlet and outlet fittings located on either side of the throttle body. Sniper 2 doesn't have a built-in fuel pressure regulator and requires an external regulator to perform properly. A redesigned bell crank helps improve drivability and pedal feel. We also added additional transmission kickdown provisions for better compatibility with most automatic transmissions. You'll find the redesigned main harness, which has been updated and is now plug and play with HyperSpark distributors. It also contains the integrated fuel pump relay, as well as the main power, ground, and switch power wires. If you ordered a Sniper 2 kit with the PDM, the harness looks similar to the non-PDM harness, minus the fuel pump relay and heavy gauge blue wire. That's because the PDM is actually a solid state relay, and it's designed to take the guesswork out of wiring, especially when it comes to adding an ignition system. Now let's check out what was in the cardboard box under our throttle body. You'll find the 3.5-inch handheld with the updated M8 interface cable. It connects to the corresponding M8 connector that's found on the throttle body. The handheld is used to set up the calibration wizard, monitor engine parameters, and perform advanced tuning operations. An optional 5-inch full-color dash or Bluetooth module is also available. We supply a 4150 base gasket. It goes between the Sniper 2 throttle body and your intake. There's also a new base gasket to seal your air cleaner. The 6-pin input-output wiring harness contains a TAC and TPS output and is used to add additional inputs and outputs to your system. We've included a 3/8 MPT threaded coolant temp sensor. It needs to be installed in the coolant passage, either in the intake manifold or your cylinder head. Next, you'll find the investment cast bung and gasket for mounting the O2 sensor, along with 2 adjustable clamps to secure the bung to your exhaust tubing. Placement in the exhaust system is critical for proper operation, so be sure to follow the instructions. Last but not least is the wideband O2 sensor, which makes closed-loop learning possible. The tip of the sensor needs to be positioned downward at an angle of at least 10 degrees or more from horizontal to prevent condensation from collecting and possibly damaging the sensor. We've also included a stylus, some double-sided tape, and an alcohol wipe for use with your 3.5-inch handheld. You'll find a couple of bonus items in your box. They include a Sniper EFI decal to put on your vehicle or toolbox, and most importantly, a warranty card. Scan the QR code found on the card and register your product to take full benefit of the extended 1-year warranty on your Sniper 2. Here are a few things that we recommend you check prior to installation to help ensure optimal performance from your new Sniper 2 EFI system. The carburetor often gets the blame for a poor running engine, even though other engine components could be causing the problem. The engine and all related components should be in sound mechanical condition, and the timing should be properly set. Make sure you check all vacuum hoses and any mating surfaces for vacuum leaks, and repair as necessary. It's also a good idea to replace your spark plugs and the spark plug wires with new ones. If your engine doesn't run correctly with the carburetor, chances are it's not going to run well after you convert it to EFI either. Before beginning your Sniper 2 EFI install, you'll need to identify a clean, switch 12-volt ignition source. This source must have 12 volts while the engine is cranking, as well as when the key is in the run position. And whenever possible, the pink switch 12-volt wire should have its own dedicated circuit. Never connect your switch power to components that can pull high current, like an ignition coil or the starter solenoid. Once a clean switch 12-volt source has been identified, disconnect both the positive and negative battery terminals from the battery before you perform any work. Now that we're ready to begin the installation, start by labeling all vacuum lines connected to your carburetor. This includes items like the brake booster, vacuum advance, and any other vacuum accessories. Disconnect the throttle and transmission kickdown cables or linkages from the carburetor if so equipped. Also remove any wires or linkages that may be connected to an automatic choke. Now remove the carburetor from the intake. be sure to clean any residual gasket material from the mating surface on the intake manifold. Inspect the carb studs for any damage to the threads and ensure that they're tight or replace them as needed. The Sniper 2 throttle body works with a standard 1-inch height stud. So if you currently have a taller stud like I do, then you'll need to replace them. Now place the provided intake gasket over the studs and onto your intake. Next, position the Sniper 2 throttle body on top of the new gasket and install the washers and hold down nuts. Tighten them progressively in a crisscross pattern to 60 to 80 inch-pounds. Shop Holley.com for your replacement carb studs, throttle and transmission brackets, and carburetor hardware required for your vehicle. Once the Sniper 2 throttle body has been installed, we can reconnect the throttle and transmission kickdown linkages if required. You may need to transfer or purchase any necessary throttle or kickdown studs onto the new bell crank, depending on your scenario. Reinstall the return spring if equipped. Depending on your scenario, it may be necessary to modify the bracket to allow clearance with the Sniper 2 throttle body. Remember, poorly routed throttle cables and linkages can cause a stiff pedal feel and may even cause the throttle pedal to hang up. Check for any binding or interference from idle to wide open throttle and correct any issues before proceeding. Reconnect the appropriate vacuum hoses to the Sniper 2 EFI throttle body. Make sure to plug or cap any vacuum ports that aren't being used on the Sniper 2 throttle body, as well as on your engine and manifold. The Sniper 2 throttle body has 4 vacuum ports available. 2 3/16 manifold vacuum ports for any accessories, 1 3/16 time vacuum port for your distributor vacuum advance, and 1 large 3/8 port for vacuum assisted brake boosters. Next, you'll need to connect the supply and return fuel hoses to the throttle body. The Sniper 2 throttle body has a fuel crossover cast right into it. This lets fuel pass from the front injectors to the rear injectors, so either fitting can be used as an inlet or outlet. Fuel for the inlet should come directly from the fuel pump, passing through a post filter and then into the throttle body. The outlet fuel fitting should be connected to an external regulator, and pressure should be set between 55 and 65 psi. The fuel pressure is tested at the gauge port on the regulator during the fuel pump prime sequence and before initial startup actually happens. We have a variety of options to choose from when it comes to supplying fuel to your Sniper 2 EFI system. When it comes to locating a good position for the oxygen sensor, remember, it should be as close as possible to the engine, but slightly after the point where all the cylinders merge. This will give us a good average of all cylinders on that bank. If you're using headers, mount the sensor approximately 1 to 10 inches after the collector, and make sure that you have at least 18 inches of exhaust pipe after the sensor for a consistent reading. If your vehicle has catalytic converters, the oxygen sensor must be installed between the engine and the catalytic converters. A clamp-on style O2 bung is included in the kit and requires a 3/4 inch hole to be pre-drilled in your exhaust system. It's critical that the exhaust sensor is positioned so that the working end of the sensor is pointed at a downward angle of at least 10 degrees or more. Never mount the O2 sensor in the bottom of the exhaust tube with the sensor facing upward. Incorrect mounting can cause condensation in the exhaust tubing to build up and foul the sensor. Place the stainless steel cast bung on top of the gasket and center it in the hole that you drilled in the exhaust system. Slide the clamps over the bung plate and tighten the clamps evenly, ensuring that there's no air leaks around the bung. Screw the O2 sensor into the bung and tighten. Once the O2 sensor has been properly installed in the exhaust system, plug it into the corresponding connector coming from your Sniper 2 throttle body. Route the cable away from high heat sources and any moving parts, and zip tie as needed. Now we'll need to install the included coolant temp sensor into a coolant passage with the 3/8 MPT port. Most engine platforms will have a port that can be used in either the intake manifold or the cylinder head. A reducer may be required to adapt to a different port size. Be careful not to cross-thread or over-tighten the sensor, or damage to the cylinder head or intake can occur. To prevent leaks, apply some thread sealer or thread tape to the threads on the sensor. To keep from making a mess, it may be necessary to remove some of the coolant from the engine and radiator before you begin. Plug the connector on the lead coming from the Sniper 2 throttle body into the coolant temp sensor once you have it installed. Next, we can move on to wiring your new EFI system. The Sniper 2 ecosystem has 2 options when it comes to choosing a main harness. Our standard main harness contains a fuel pump relay and large 14-gauge blue wire, which can be used to directly power your fuel pump. We also offer an optional main harness that's designed for Sniper 2 EFI kits that are equipped with the Sniper 2 PDM. This harness does not have a fuel pump relay. Instead, it uses a smaller gauge wire to ground trigger the PDM or compatible external fuel pump relay. The optional Sniper 2 EFI power distribution module is intended to make wiring easier and less intimidating. Using the Sniper 2 PDM reduces the number of power and ground wires that you'll have to run to power up the system and any collective components. Less wiring helps reduce the potential for electrical issues, and the PDM provides conditioned power, ground, and switched power connections for all the components within your Sniper 2 ecosystem. And built-in diagnostic LEDs help with troubleshooting your system should an issue arise. Lay out the main harness that's included with the Sniper 2 kit in your engine bay. The Sniper 2 EFI main wiring harness and connector exits the throttle body near the rear and will typically be oriented towards the firewall. I'll be installing the PDM and PDM harness with the Sniper 2 on this Mustang. Connect the power distribution module per the instructions included, then secure the wires for the Sniper EFI throttle body to the respective terminals. Red gets connected to terminal 5, black connects to terminal 8, then route the pink switch power wire and connect it to terminal 4 on the Sniper PDM. For PDM equipped harnesses, connect the 20 gauge blue ground trigger wire to terminal number 3 on the Sniper PDM. This will trigger the PDM and supply power to your fuel pump when activated. To power the fuel pump, connect a red wire to terminal number 1 on the PDM for positive power. Use a black wire for the negative and connect it to the number 2 terminal on the PDM. Run both wires back to your fuel pump and connect the red and black wires to the positive and negative terminals on the fuel pump. Then secure the wires to prevent abrasion and contact with high heat. Shorten and zip tie any unused wires or cables, then wrap the ends of any exposed wiring with heat shrink. This will protect them from accidental contact with the engine or chassis. Now secure the main harness to your vehicle, but remember to leave access to the main fuse. The Sniper 2 PDM also has a provision for controlling an electric cooling fan. To control fan number 1, connect the positive wire to the number 18 terminal and the ground to the number 17 terminal. Run the black with yellow tracer wire from the 6-pin input-output harness to terminal number 7 on the PDM. To control a secondary fan, install an external relay and wire the fan accordingly. Use the green with white tracer wire found in the 6-pin I/O harness to control the external relay. All on and off activations for both fans number 1 and number 2 can be set up using the Sniper 2 handheld. If you chose not to install a Sniper 2 PDM, connect your main harness according to the diagram that follows. It's not required, but whenever possible, connect the Sniper 2 main power wires or the PDM main power wires if you chose one to an isolated terminal by using a dual post battery. Be sure to route the pink switch power wire to the clean 12-volt switched ignition source that we located earlier. Non-PDM harnesses have a dedicated fuel pump relay. Route the 14-gauge blue wire to your fuel pump and properly secure and protect the wire from any potential heat or rub hazards. Connect the blue wire directly to the positive side of your fuel pump and connect the negative side of the pump to a good clean chassis ground. Next, we can move on to the ignition system. Sniper 2 EFI can be wired and configured to control both fueling and spark timing for your engine, or it can be set up to control fueling only, depending on the distributor and ignition type you choose. Both the non-PDM and PDM equipped main harnesses were designed for easy plug and play with HyperSpark distributors. But to get the most out of your Sniper 2 EFI system, we recommend installing a HyperSpark distributor, coil, and ignition box. Using a HyperSpark distributor and ignition system will allow you to control timing with your Sniper 2 EFI system. And thanks to the plug and play harness and easy to wire power distribution module, installation takes no time at all. Install the distributor in your engine according to the HyperSpark distributor instructions. If you need help with the install, follow the link below for step-by-step video instructions. Once the distributor is installed in the engine, simply plug the 3-pin connector found on the distributor into the Sniper 2 EFI main harness ignition connector. This connector provides the distributor with switched power, ground, and connects the signal wire from the distributor to the Sniper 2 ECU. Connect the HyperSpark 2 ignition box and coil using the harness. Wire the 4 leads from the HyperSpark ignition harness into the Sniper 2 PDM as follows. If you choose to use a HyperSpark canister style coil instead of the standard coil, you'll need to cut the connector off and install the appropriate terminals to the wires. If you prefer to keep your points distributor, follow the wiring instructions for the coil minus option shown. HEI style distributors are also compatible with the coil minus option and will need to be wired as follows. If you're using a magnetic pickup distributor like the MSD Pro billet, you'll need to purchase an adapter to connect the distributor to the 3-pin ignition connector found on the Sniper 2 harness. Remember, these setups do not allow for timing control. Another option that provides the benefits of HyperSpark is to install a capacitive discharge ignition box with your Sniper 2 EFI system. This option can be used with a points or HEI style distributor and does not control ignition timing. It does, however, provide a hotter spark thanks to the CD ignition technology. Wire this setup according to the diagram shown. An optional 6-pin harness is provided with your Sniper 2 EFI system. This harness has an optional tach output for connecting an aftermarket tachometer, a TPS output with a 0 to 5 volt reference, as well as 2 input and 2 output ground triggers for controlling optional accessories like a second cooling fan. We're now ready to choose our interface. We offer 3 interface options to choose from. They include our 3.5-inch dash, 5-inch dash, and our Bluetooth module that allows you to use an iOS or Android-based smartphone to set up your Sniper 2, make tuning changes, use as a gauge display, even take data logs, and store your personal tunes. Route the cable of the display that you chose to use through the firewall. Be sure to use a grommet to protect the cable from sharp edges. Connect the cable from the 3.5 or 5-inch display or the Bluetooth module to the M8 interface cable found on the throttle body. Do not connect your display to the M8 interface found on the Sniper 2 main harness. It will not function correctly. The M8 user interface has a keyway, and it will only connect once oriented properly. Once you're plugged in, screw the connector together. If your kit includes the optional Bluetooth module or the 5-inch display, the connection to the M8 interface cable will be the same. For speed detection using the 5-inch display, you'll need to position the GPS module in a spot that has an unobstructed view of the sky. Carefully route the cable without pinching or stretching it, then connect it to the port found in the back of the 5-inch display. We're almost ready to fire it up, but first we need to reconnect the cables for the positive and negative to the battery. Turn the key to the run position, but do not start the engine yet. Begin the calibration process by selecting the wizard icon from the home page. Select Sniper Wizard, then select the Sniper system type. Next, you'll need to select the number of cylinders that your engine has, then click Next. Enter the displacement of your engine by using the sliding bar, or you can press the white box and enter it manually. Now set your desired hot idle speed by using the sliding bar or pressing the white box. This is the RPM the Sniper 2 EFI will target once the coolant temperature is reached above 160 degrees. Now we need to select the camshaft type. The stock mild option will work well on most engines. Select this if you're unsure of your camshaft specs. If your engine has between 8 and 13 inches of vacuum manifold, select the street strip cam option. Select race option if your engine has less than 7 inches of manifold vacuum. Race-oriented camshafts may require laptop tuning for optimal idle stability. If your engine is using a power adder like a turbo or supercharger, select the appropriate type here. If it's naturally aspirated, select none. Select the ignition type. This is based on the distributor and ignition choice you've installed on your engine. If you selected the HyperSpark distributor option in step 8, clarify whether it's the standard HyperSpark distributor or the ready-to-run HyperSpark distributor. If a non-timing control method was chosen in step 8, you can skip to step 10. If you chose a timing control method in step 8, then enter the amount of ignition timing that's desired at wide open throttle by using the slide bar or manually entering it in the white box. After you've answered all the questions in the wizard, your calibration will be created. Press the start icon to send the calibration to the ECU. Once this process is completed, you'll see a screen indicating that the file has been uploaded. Once the file is uploaded successfully, turn the ignition switch to the off position, then back to the run position, but don't attempt to start the engine. You should be able to hear the fuel pump come on and run for approximately 5 seconds. This is a great time to check for fuel leaks and also verify that you have adequate fuel pressure in the system. With the key in the run position and the 3.5-inch handheld or 5-inch display powered up, verify that all the sensors are reading properly. From the home screen, select the monitor, then monitor's icon. You'll see an icon in the lower right named Initial Startup. Select this icon, and with the key in the run position and the engine off, the sensors should read as follows. The engine RPM should show stall. Once you begin cranking the engine, it will show actual engine RPM. The TPS or throttle position sensor should read 0. If you slowly depress the throttle to wide open, you should get a reading between 85 and 100%. MAP or manifold air pressure sensor should read between 95 and 102. At higher elevations, it could read as low as 75. The CTS or coolant temp sensor reads the actual engine temperature. We won't worry about the IAC position until we've started the engine and got it up to operating temperature. Battery will read battery voltage and should be a minimum of 12 volts. If any of these sensors are not reading properly, the underlying issue must be resolved before you attempt to start your engine. This is a great time to visually inspect your Sniper 2 install. Double check for leaks, proper wire routing, and any wire hazards or loose nuts and bolts. Also make sure that the vehicle's battery is fully charged. With the handheld still on the initial startup screen, crank the engine and watch the RPM parameter. It should change from syncing to showing an RPM reading as the engine fires up, runs, and then settles into an idle. If the engine does not start, use the flowchart in the Sniper 2 EFI troubleshooting guide found at Holley.com. If the issue still continues, call Holley Tech Service for further advice. If the engine starts but it's idling too low and appears to be struggling for air, you may have to open the idle speed screw. A loud whistling sound may be heard at idle if the throttle blades need to be opened even further. Once the engine temperature is above 160 degrees Fahrenheit, the idle speed can be set. To do this, open up the initial startup gauge screen and with the vehicle in neutral, adjust the idle screw on the primary shaft until the IAC position reads between 2 and 10%. After you've adjusted the throttle plate screw, check the TPS value on the screen. If the TPS reads anything other than 0, turn the ignition off, then restart the engine, and the ECU will reset the TPS back to 0. If the IAC percentage is reading 0, but the engine is idling higher than the programmed idle speed, the throttle plates need to be closed. On the other hand, if the IAC percentage is at 100% and the engine is lower or maintaining the programmed idle speed, the throttle plates will need to be opened. Once you have the vehicle started, double check for any fuel or coolant leaks. Let the vehicle warm up and look at the other parameters to make sure everything is operating properly. Determine if closed loop is working, and once the engine coolant has reached above 160 degrees, verify that Learn is functioning. Click the monitor icon, then the multi-gauge, and select the air-fuel ratio icon. This will show the air-fuel ratio that the wideband oxygen sensor is reading. The closed loop compensation should be adding or subtracting fuel at all times, and the AFR should always be close to the target AFR value. This is the target AFR that the ECU is trying to maintain. This varies depending on the engine speed, load, and coolant temperature. This indicates the amount of enrichment based on the coolant temperature. 100% equals 0 enrichment, and it will not reach this point until the engine is 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Your engine will not go into Learn mode until this is at 100%. This indicates whether the engine is in closed or open loop. Closed loop indicates that the ECU is adding or subtracting fuel to maintain the target air-fuel ratios. The Sniper 2 EFI calibrations are such that the system should be operating in closed loop almost all the time. Learn status. This indicates the status of the Sniper 2 EFI self-tuning operation. The system will populate the Learn table as you drive around. There are several conditions that must occur in order for self-tuning to happen. The engine temperature must exceed 160 degrees Fahrenheit. The system must be operating in closed loop mode, and the self-tuning must be enabled. The base Sniper EFI calibrations have the self-tuning enabled. Once the engine coolant reaches above 160, the self-tuning should be active. The Learn status will show no Learn when self-tuning is not active, and Learn if the self-tuning is active. This is the injector pulse width in milliseconds that the ECU is commanding the fuel injector to be open or flowing fuel. Low values are less fuel and higher values equal more fuel. This indicates the revolutions per minute that the engine is turning. This is an indication of the amount of fuel in pounds per hour that's being injected into the engine at any given time. And this will vary depending on the engine speed and engine load. When using the calibration wizard to create a Sniper 2 EFI calibration, fan number 1 and fan number 2 are programmed as follows. Fan 1 is programmed to output number 1. It's the black with yellow striped wire. Fan 2 is programmed to output number 2. It's a green with a white striped wire. In the Sniper 2 EFI user interface, change the desired temperature at which you want the fans to turn on and off at. Sniper 2 EFI is able to detect if there's a load on the output wiring corresponding with the programmable output. If the temperature threshold is met, but there's no fan wired, or it's wired incorrectly, or there's a problem with the relay triggering the fan, an open will show on the user interface when looking at the fan status. Congratulations on a successful Sniper 2 EFI install. Don't forget, Holley has all kinds of accessories like air cleaners, plug wires, digital displays, and more to complement your Sniper 2 EFI install. All that's left to do now is drive your vehicle and let Sniper's self-tuning happen. Take a passenger along with you on your first drive. They can safely watch parameters like coolant temp, RPM, battery voltage, and more. Perform the test in an area where you can drive the vehicle under a variety of driving conditions. With the vehicle temp above 160 degrees Fahrenheit, let the vehicle idle and watch the closed loop compensation value. Once this value nears zero, the self-tuning process for idle has been completed. If your vehicle is an automatic, hold the brake and put the car into gear. Let it run there for just a little bit. If your vehicle has air conditioning, turn it on and off as well. This will load the engine slightly and put it in a different tuning area. Next, slowly accelerate from a stop. If you have a manual transmission, do some low-speed stop and go clutch engagements. Now go cruise the vehicle and maintain a steady speed. After a few minutes of steady driving, vary the vehicle speed. You can also try driving in different gears. After a while of driving under various conditions, you can perform some harder accelerations, including brief wide open throttle passes. The point of this is to run the vehicle at different engine loads and speeds. This allows the Sniper 2 to create a more complete fuel table for your engine. Watch the closed loop percentages on your user interface. Once it's trended towards zero in all driving conditions, verify that closed loop never shows lower than -20% or higher than +20%. Then using the handheld, change the closed loop compensation limits to plus or minus 20%. It's also recommended that you lower the learn percentage limits down to plus or minus 10%. This ensures that your Sniper 2 EFI system doesn't learn any poor values, such as when an exhaust leak develops, a mechanical issue happens, or a sensor fails. Once you're satisfied, transfer the fuel learn table to the base fuel table. This can be done real quickly by simply selecting the tuning icon from the home screen, then Advanced Learn. Click on the transfer table and click Yes to smooth the table, and you're done. If something should happen, the modified calibration with restricted closed loop and restricted learn limits would still allow you to make it home safely. We recommend you download that calibration and save it to your SD card using a unique name. If an issue should arise, you can upload a previously downloaded calibration to get the vehicle home safely. The learn percentage that you see on the handheld is not a progress bar, but rather a value of how much correction to the base fuel table that's occurring based on your engine's requirements. Your Sniper 2 EFI system comes with the latest firmware already installed, but to keep it up to date, you can download our free PC software anytime from Holley.com. I hope you enjoy your Sniper 2 EFI system. To learn more about how you can convert your vehicle to EFI or to check out any of our other great products, visit us at Holley.com.